Folks, it's me, Denny Carter from Rotoworld and NBC Sports, coming at you for the Week 4 Fantasy Football Q&A, where you bring your Qs and I give you As and you go on your way. I'm kidding. No, I'm going to answer your questions, but you are required by law, believe it or not, to stick around for the whole show. It's, I didn't make the rules or the law. I will uphold it. No. Okay. We have to remember that. I want to remind everyone not to get too cute with their questions. Okay. And everybody remembers the mantra of this stream, which is you get too cute, you get the boot. Too cute, you get the boot. I think it's the second one. Just remember that. I'm not actually going to kick you out, but I'm going to act like it. I'm going to act like I'm real mad. Anyway, thank you for joining the stream. I think I looked back at some of my answers from last week. I think we did pretty well in the chat as far as deciding who to play and who to sit in fantasy leagues. And another thing I wanted to mention before we get started here is that I don't care how big your league is. Okay, I'm not gonna shame the size of your fantasy football league. I know some folks in the chat will say, "Oh, you're deciding between these 3 elite receivers. Must be nice. You must be in an 8-team league." Well, if you are in an 8-team league, what I'm telling you is that that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. No shame in that. Some folks like 8-team leagues. They like smaller leagues. You know why? Because you don't have to be a sicko, right? So like deep 14-team formats, that's no fun. I'm gonna be honest. Most of the leagues I play in are 14-team leagues now, and I'll be straight with you. It's awful. It's awful. I'm sorry if you can hear my dog. I put him behind a gate, and that seems not to have made any difference here. Anyway, let's get started with some nerdy metrics here to start the to start the show. We have we're going to start with yards before contact per rush. Okay, so this is a measure of how good a rushing matchup is in the coming week. It's a lot of the same teams week in and week out. So I'll just kind of skip through some of them. The Bears were at the top of this list as far as yards given up before contact per rush. Last year, they're well at the top. This year, like by far and away, over the second place team, the Titans. So Ashton Genty might actually be able to gain yards this week. I'm sure a lot of you are going to ask about Genty, rightfully so. It's been miserable, awful in every way. I think you have to play him though, because the matchup is so good this week against the Bears front seven. The Titans are second here in yards given up before contact per rush. I guess that makes Nick Chubb viable. Maybe Woody Marks, but Woody Marks is mostly being used as a pass catcher. I mean, Chubb is still going to be touchdown dependent big time. You know what you're getting. It is a good spot though. The Bills are third here in yards given up before contact. Alvin Kamara's rushing profile, or profile in general, through 3 games has been bleak. We talked about it on Thursday's Rotoworld football show, where we previewed all of the games for week 4. Kamara seeing an 8% target share. He's only being targeted on 13% of his pass routes. Those are both like abysmal rates, right? And way below what we've seen from Kamara as like a PPR cheat code. Of course, the Sean Payton and RotoPat pointed this out. The Sean Payton industrial complex no longer runs the Saints for the first time in like 20 years. So I guess maybe part of that industrial complex was making Alvin Kamara a thing. Never been good, some are asking. But anyway, he's facing a Bills team allowing a lot of yards before contact. So he has that going for him, which, of course, is nice. Let's get to a few more here before we skip down to the really tough matchups. The Panthers are fourth here in yards given up before contact. Hey, look, if you're able to choose the right New England Patriots running back, it could be fun. Could be fun. Mike Vrabel one day says that, like, Ramondre Stevenson, it's all his fault, and you can't do that. You can't fumble. He fumbled twice. If you missed it last week, got benched. Antonio Gibson fumbled once, but then Vrabel will come out the next day and say, we have to be better as a team, this and that, and like take the heat off of Stevenson a little bit. I think there's a chance that TreVeyon Henderson gets a shot, just a chance at the RB1 role this week. If he does, it's a really nice spot against Carolina. Here's a somewhat surprising one, perhaps for you. It was for me. The Colts rank 5th in most yards before contact per rush given up. Okay. No one has been in position to establish it against the Colts because Daniel D. Dimes and the Colts have been running roughshod over everyone. Not a sentence I thought I'd say this time of year, but it's true. And it hasn't given teams a chance to actually run the ball. When they have run the ball against the Colts have been pretty bad defending the run. So if you think, and I think that this is correct, if you think this game between the Colts and the Rams is going to be close, has some shootout potential, it has one of, I believe, the highest total of the week, actually. So if you like the game environment, and you should, then Kyren Williams is in a very quiet. We have to be very quiet when we're talking about this matchup, but in a quietly good spot here against Indianapolis. I know Blake Corum is sort of eating into his workload. We're used to seeing, Kyren Williams on the field for 90% plus of the snaps. That's not happening. I think that's okay. For this week, I think that it's actually a pretty nice spot for old Kyren. I'll mention this just real quick. Cincinnati, 6th in rush yards given up before contact per rush. J.K. Dobbins, who is leading this backfield, 41-13 as far as rushing attempts go. The Zoomers have told me this. Okay, I got in touch with my Zoomer source, deep within the Gen Z community, and here's what he said. He said J.K. Dobbins is in a giga turbo mega smash spot. I think I got that right. I may be paraphrasing, but there was a giga and there was a turbo in there. What I'm saying is that J.K. Dobbins has to be in your lineups this week. Like the Broncos are 7.5 point home favorites against the most down bad team in the NFL, the Bengals. The Bengals know it's over. Like, the vibes are just spoiled completely. Like, their season is completely over. I think the Broncos will try to be run heavy here. I think that they can be, because, like I said, the Bengals are getting crushed on the ground. All right, let's skip down to the toughest teams, toughest rush defenses in the league, and just talk about matchups here. The Browns, of course, allowing the fewest yards before contact per rush at 0.11. That's a low mark, folks. Very low. It's so much lower than anybody else. It's crazy. You're playing Jahmyr Gibbs. That's not a question. I would say in like 10-team formats, even though David Montgomery got there last week for you big time, and in part because Montgomery was allowed to score, the Ravens let him score from 25 yards out, and you can't convince me otherwise. I think that in the 10-team league, you might want to think about another option over Montgomery, because Montgomery is not involved enough in the pass game to get away with it if he struggles on the ground. And I can tell you that he's probably going to struggle on the ground against Cleveland this week. The Patriots are second best in yards given up before contact per rush. Chuba Hubbard is seemingly never in a great spot. But I think you have to start him. Just hope that he's involved in the in the pass game a little bit. Cowboys are third best here. Josh Jacobs, I still think, I said it on the Rotoworld football show on Thursday, I said the Packers, there's no way the Packers are going to let it loose against the Cowboys as far as the pass goes. They're going to establish it. They're going to be ultra giga run heavy, as the kids say. And here's another thing about Jacobs. I mean, you're starting him, but here's a fun fact. He led the Packers in targets last week easily. He was targeted on like 40% of his routes. He had 9 targets. The next closest guy had 6. So the real winner, the real winner of Jaden Reed being out, I mean, I guess it's Matthew Golden to an extent, but it's Josh Jacobs. Huge workload. If you're playing against Josh Jacobs this week, just, beware. Beware that a 30 burger is on the horizon for you. Jets are 4th worst in this category. Achane's in a good spot. If the game script is right, Ollie Gordon, I think, can get there. Gordon had 9 rushes to 12 rushes for Achane last week. And then the Bucks are 5th best in yards given up before contact. Saquon has been not good, right? I mean, you're playing him. This is probably not the breakout spot for old Saquon. Maybe we can get more throwing. Maybe the Eagles can do that weird thing where they throw the ball. Last week when they got down 26-7 or whatever it was against the Rams, I, for some reason, felt super confident that they were going to let it rip via the pass game and that it was going to work beautifully. And maybe this would be the thing that would get Nick Sirianni and his offensive staff to actually, establish the pass, which you should be doing that, by the way. There is no such thing as establishing the run. You establish the pass and then you run it. Make me an offensive coordinator. I will coach the greatest offense in history if you do. NFL, if you're listening. So maybe we'll see more passing here. Obviously, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith drafters hope so. All right, let's get to your questions here. Sorry, I have something stuck in my throat here. I ate a coffee dunker right before the show. It's like one of those things you get from Costco where it's like a cookie, like a chocolate cover on the bottom. And it's sold to you as like a breakfast food. And so you can pretend that it's healthy. Yeah, I mean, like you can pretend like it's not just a snack. It's not just a cookie, right? This is a dunker. It goes with my coffee. I drink coffee in the mornings. This is my breakfast. Not that that's my breakfast. My breakfast is and always will be oatmeal. Let's get to your questions. Zork is in the chat. Half PPR pick 2. Io Maynor, Bateman, Trey Tucker, Sterling Shepard, Shakir. Can you tell I'm a CD and Evans drafter? Yeah, that's tough. I have CD Lamb in a lot of leagues, and I am tilting my brains out. So I talked about Trey Tucker on the Fantasy Football Happy Hour a few minutes ago. It's not as simple as saying like he blew up for 140 plus yards and 3 touchdowns last week. That ain't happening again. Of course, he'll never do that again. If he plays 10 more years in the league, Trey Tucker will never have that sort of output. You know that. That's not the situation. That's not the argument against using Trey Tucker. The argument should be for playing Trey Tucker because he's running 90+% of the routes. He's second on the team in first read targets. He's gobbling up air yards at a pretty good rate. We love our air yards. We love trying to feed them to our families. So I think it's definitely Tucker here. And then I'd go with Shepard. Shepard 4 for 80 last week. Should be out there a lot this week. And I like the environment. I like the game environment of Philly, Tampa. I'd go Shepard and Tucker. Godspeed to Zork. Francisco's in the chat. Hello, Doc. Hello to you. Salute for whatever reason. Need 2 full PPR. J.K. Dobbins. I think Kyron Williams, Garrett Wilson, Cortland Sutton, Jordan Mason. Need 2. Okay. I mean, strong team, Francisco. First of all, to me, Jordan Mason, as long as Aaron Jones is out and he is sidelined still, is like a must play. Just figure it out. And he's going against one of the worst defenses in the league this week against in the Steelers. Now, the Steelers are worse against the pass than they are against the run. I don't think it matters that much. It has to be Mason. And I'm going to say no Garrett Wilson, even though he could easily go off. I'm going to say no Cortland Sutton, because Dobbins and Kyren Williams are such great options. I mentioned earlier about Kyren Williams matchup, secretly good. I would actually go with Kyren and Mason there. It's close though. I want to get Dobbins in there. Oh well. Dan says happy Friday to you. Half PPR. Which two are you starting? Chuba Hubbard, assuming he'll play. Yeah, he was on the injury report. Pearsall, Jalen Warren, Tyquan Thornton. Mahomes is Dan's quarterback. Pick two. I'd go Jalen Warren because of his pass game involvement, and I would go Pearsall. Pearsall 50% has accounted for 50% of the Niners' air yards. Not what I was anticipating, but what do I know? Tune in for more information from a guy who knows things. Lanny Horn, hi Lanny, in the chat. If Tedero and McMillan can't go, who plays? I mean, McMillan will play, but Io Maynor, Shakir, Chase Brown, Luther Burden, Chris Rodriguez. He can't play Luther Burden. He barely played it all last week. Totally got away with it with that nice throw from Caleb on the flea flicker, on the worst flea flicker anyone's ever seen. Can't play Chris Rodriguez. Yeah. Honestly, you can't play Chase Brown. I'd go Shakir. I would go Shakir. All right, Nicholas is in the chat. Nicholas says, I got offered Pickens and Scattaboo for Jamar Chase. Is that too cute? It is. It is. I'm not pulling the plug on Jamar Chase. Now, does Jamar Chase want to be around? Does he really want to be playing? That's hard to say. I saw some film from last week that suggests otherwise. That suggests that Jamar Chase is very much done with all this, that he ain't reading all that going forward. But Pickens is unfortunately who we thought he was. He's not a separator. He's not a target commander. He's a feast or famine wide receiver 3, even with CeeDee Lamb out. This is the thing, folks. The winner of the CeeDee Lamb situation is Jake Ferguson. Jake Ferguson was targeted on 40% of his routes last week. Jake Ferguson is an elite fantasy option right now. I would only play 2 tight ends over Ferguson, Bowers and McBride. And honestly, just by a little bit. I'm not totally convinced. In fact, you could convince me that Jake Ferguson is the best tight end option in all of fantasy football. You could do it if you wanted to, but you just don't do that. It's probably for the best not to do that. George Pickens is still going to just be running, wind sprints, empty routes. Hopefully he catches a deep one at some point this year. But no, I'd want to keep Chase there. Laney's back in the chat. Bills defense good to go without Milano and Oliver against the Saints. I don't care. Come on, man. Come on. It's fine. It's fine. The Bills are going to be at home against the Saints, and you're worried about Milano and Oliver. Come on. You're thinking too much, Laney. The key to this game is thinking as little as possible. Don't tell anyone I said that. Any thoughts on Brashard Smith? He's a player. He's a running back for the Chiefs. Those are my thoughts. Okay. Is he worth a pickup? Couldn't be just a smart aleck with you. You had to get me, Lanny. Once again, Lanny has gotten me. Is he worth a pickup? I mean, if you're in a deep league, I guess. I mean, he's still like a very far away from actual playing time in the Kansas City offense. Jonathan is in And around the chat, Jonathan says, need to start 2 full PPR, Tyreek, Pickens, and Sutton. Should I be worried about Pickens because of matchups and lack of hands? Lack of hands. That sounds like a problem to me. My receiver lacks hands. If anybody remembers the classic early 90s movie Necessary Roughness, I grew up on that movie. I watched it roughly 300 times on VHS. Zoomers, Google it, look it up. There was Stonehands, the receiver, super fast guy. Talk about creating separation. Stonehands created separation. Unfortunately, he had hands that seemed to be made of stone, and he kept dropping everything until, if I remember correctly, Stonehands put an illegal substance on his hands so that he couldn't drop the ball. I think like pine tar, like what like the Raiders guys used to do that, right? The Raiders cornerbacks used to put pine tar on their hands. So good for Stonehands. Maybe George Pickens should look into that. I probably shouldn't say that because that's cheating. And also I want to say I don't understand how anybody can drop anything with the kind of gloves that these guys have. Okay, I'm sorry. You didn't think that I was going to go on this rant. I have to do it. I got to do it to him. I coached flag football last year for the first time in a while. In the interim, in like the 4 years between when I first coached flag football and then coached last spring, the gloves, the prevalence of the super sticky gloves skyrocketed, right? Every kid came to these games with super sticky gloves, even the kids, who were mostly there, not to actually catch the ball, but, just to be there. And they couldn't even throw the ball with those things on because the ball stuck to them too much. So they couldn't get it off. And I asked a kid, can I wear those? I wore them, and I don't understand how anybody drops anything. And yet George Pickens does. It is curious. Anyway, start 2. I would start Sutton and Tyreek Hill. All right. Greg says full PPR pick 2, Waddle, I guess DJ Moore, Worthy, and Addison. I would go Worthy for sure. Waddle's only a 17% route, 17% target rate, only being targeted on 18% of his routes. So not a great profile. I do feel like Tyreek and Achane have separated themselves in that passing attack for Miami. So I would go Moore and Worthy. Addison, he's a touchdown scorer. He's a big play guy. We like that. We enjoy that. We appreciate that. Also, the Vikings come into week 4 with a bottom 5 pass rate over expected. All right. These are not your grandfather's Vikings. Actually, I retract that statement. They are your grandfather's Vikings because they are establishing it far more than we've seen from previous Kevin O'Connell teams, mostly because, the quarterback can't be trusted. So Addison should still see like 30% of the air yards here, but 30% of the air yards in an offense that throws 40 passes a game is way different than 30% of the air yards in a offense that throws it 27 times a game. And that's just analytics. So I would go with Moore and Worthy there. This person says battered and bruised fantasy manager here with Dak, CD, Mike Evans trying to hold it down this week with Geno, Trey Tucker, Judkins. Despite your regression files, Tucker is over Dobbs, Shakir, Hunter. Okay, so you're asking, do you play Tucker over Dobbs, Shakir, and Hunter? You do. Hunter's just not involved at all in the Jacksonville offense. I'm gonna have to see it before I believe it with him. I'm just putting it out there, okay? I wrote a piece back in like April. I was just asking questions, okay? You can still ask questions in this country. And I asked the question, is Travis Hunter actually good? And a lot of the metrics suggested that he is not. That he was not. I mean, I'm sorry. Like he wasn't even close in some metrics to like to guys who were drafted way after him as far as like target commanding, efficiency per route, efficiency per catch, yards after the catch. Like he didn't check any of those boxes. He's a cool guy who played for a cool coach on a cool team. That was it. That was the Travis Hunter situation headed into this. And my millennial GM dude from Jacksonville was all in on the coolness. I get it. I probably would have done the same thing as a fellow millennial. I'd be like, my haircut's cool. I remember 2008, so let's go with the cool guy, with Travis Hunter. It's not going to work out. Anyway, yeah, Tucker, and then you have the nice Geno Tucker stack there. I think the Raiders will throw a lot this week. Timothy Chan is in the chat. Half PPR. I'm going to get to some slot receiver matchups in a second here. If folks want to hang on to your horses. The people still say that, yeah. You don't let go of the horse yet. Timothy Chan need to start too. DeAndre Swift, woof. Judkins, woof. Chase Brown, yikes. And Woody Marks, well, look, sometimes in fantasy football, you just have to choose from terrible options, and that's what we have here. DeAndre Swift is still seeing all of the touches in the Chicago backfield. The Raiders' defense is not very good. I think it has to be him. And then, I'm going to say Judkins because I can't say Brown, and honestly, I can't say Marks. I'm going to say Judkins, but you have to understand, truly, you have to wrap your head around this. Judkins is not going to get there if the Browns fall behind 3 scores in the first half. It's just not going to happen because he is not out there running routes. He is not out there getting targets. Last week, it was Jerome Ford leading by a large margin, leading the Cleveland backfield in both routes and targets. So, it's a gamble because if the Browns defense can't keep them in it, if Flacco melts down, whatever, then you have a problem. Game script goes sideways. Judkins' fantasy production is pretty much shot at that point. So just be aware of that. But I would go with Judkins. Will's in the chat. Would you trade Jordan Mason for London in PPR? Okay. Yes. Because A, Aaron Jones is coming back at some point, and B, London is a major, massive regression candidate in this Atlanta offense. I would only do that if your running back situation is solid. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, I'm going to get to more of your questions in just a moment. In the meantime, let's look at which teams are most susceptible to slot receivers through 3 weeks. Excuse me while I take a sip of my grapefruit seltzer. I know some folks are grapefruit haters. They're out of their minds. All right, so we're going to look at completion percentage over expected against opposing slot receivers. Okay. I've also looked at adjusted yards per target to slot receivers. So here are 5 teams that are most susceptible to slot receivers. The Bucs, so that should be good for AJ Brown to an extent. Mostly Dallas Goedert, honestly. That's a Dallas Goedert stat for the most part. The Patriots are second worst against slot receivers. Ted McMillan is not lining up in the slot a whole lot. I guess that's a Hunter Renfrow stat. I'm sorry. Look. I don't take any pleasure. I'm just telling you what the numbers are telling me. But it might be a Hunter Renfrow week. I'm sorry. This has gone completely off the rails. Ravens are third worst against slot receivers. The Ravens defense just generally is pretty horrible. That's a Xavier Worthy stat, probably. I mean, he should be in the slot quite a bit here. Could even be a washed Travis Kelce stat. Who knows? Who knows at this point? The Bears, who are giving up a league high adjusted yards per attempt to slot receivers, they are fourth worst here. I'm trying to think who are they play the Raiders. That's a Brock Bauer situation mostly. Trey Tucker lines up on the outside. So does Jacoby Myers to an extent. And then I wanted to mention the Lions. Now, Lions are fifth worst against slot receivers. This is Harold Fannin and this is David Njoku, both of whom I support this week. Jerry Jeudy's on the boundary. Cedric Tillman is on the boundary. So I think Fannin and Njoku are interesting this week. All right, let's go down to the bottom here. Check out a few of the toughest teams against opposing slot receivers. You have the Jags are, they're crushing opposing slot receivers. Not the best news for a guy like Pearsall, I suppose, or maybe Jennings, depending on how they're going to play this week. The Browns are second best against slot receivers. That's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but you're playing him anyway. Who cares? The Packers are third best. That could ruin my Jake Ferguson situation because Jake Ferguson operates from the slot a whole lot. And then the Colts are fourth best against the slot. Puka mostly. But obviously you're not going to bench him. All right, let's get back to your questions, folks. I hope you like those little asides. I like them, which is the most important thing here. This person's in the chat says, Bo Nix or Justin Fields. Keep it locked to Rotoworld to make sure that Justin Fields is going to play on Monday night. All indications right now are that Fields is going to suit up. He missed last week with the concussion. He's trying to get out of the league's concussion protocol. He's almost there. If he logs a full practice on Friday, I believe he exits the protocol and he's good to go. If he plays, definitely play Fields over Nix on Monday night. Zork says, does he play Purdy or Mariota? It's a bad spot for Purdy. I guess you still play him though. All right. Nadine says, Doc, salute to you. Dilemma or delusion? Should I drop Zach Ertz and play Fannin to pick up Tucker or Wandell? Well, I would play Ertz over Fannin. It's a good spot. I mean, Ertz did quite well, if I remember correctly, against the Falcons last year. The Commanders were super run heavy in week 3. I think that they'll be less run heavy this week, just out of necessity. The Falcons are pretty solid against the run. So I don't think the Commanders will be able to get away with it this week. I think that they actually will have at least a little bit of passing volume. That's good for Ertz. So I'd go with Ertz over Fannin. And then, should I drop Ertz to play Fannin? No, I wouldn't do that. And then I would play Wandell over Tucker. I hope that helps. All right, let's get to Timothy. Need to choose one defense: the Patriots against the Panthers against the Patriots, the Jets against the Dolphins, the Falcons against the Commanders, the Bears against the Raiders, or the Jaguars against the 49ers. And by the way, Timothy took the time to put notes in every matchup, and I appreciate that a lot. That is doing me a solid, brother. Thank you. Well, I would play. I don't like the Jags defense this week. The Jets, no. I'd go with the Patriots. I know they're not great, but they're at home against the Panthers. I go with them. Jerry's in the chat. PPR flex spot. T. Higgins. I haven't heard his name in years. Waddle or Jennings. If Jennings plays, absolutely play Juwan Jennings. Noah, love the show. Thank you, Noah. I love the show as well. George Pickens or Keenan Allen in the flex, half PPR. Again, unless George Pickens goes with the stick him on his hands, got to play Keenan Allen. It has nothing to do with drops. I'm kidding. Drops don't matter. Drops don't matter. Let me be clear. Drops don't matter. Keenan Allen has a great role. The Giants are, let me see just real quick here. I think the Giants are getting beat up by slot receivers. Hang on, folks. Yeah, top 10 in adjusted yards given up, per attempt. So Keenan Allen should be fine. Let's see. Tangled in waiver wires in the chat. Quarterback start Dak, Nix, or Fields. It's Fields. It's Fields. It is Fields. Nate, desperate to fill 2 flex spots. We've all been there. Have Herbert and Bijan and Jonathan Taylor. Okay, you don't even read me your whole roster, brother. Choices are Woody Marks, Ollie Gordon, Fan and Bird and Booty, Gainwell. Every player in the NFL. Nate goes on to list every player in the NFL. Shout out to Nate. 2 flex spots. Fannin. And not Bird, not Booty, not Gainwell, not Dowdle. But Shepard, you're going with Shepard. Unless you want it all. If you want to risk it all, folks, Nate, you go with Dontavian Wicks. He's a guy who could see 2 targets against the Cowboys and score 18 fantasy points. Okay? We know how this happens. He could also see 2 targets and score 0 fantasy points, and we know how that happens. But Shepard is the safer option for this week. Dr. Denny's patient is in the chat. Salute to you. That's what my doctor does to me when I come in. It gives me a salute. I don't really know why, but I'm not a doctor. No, wait, I am a doctor. I'm sorry. I forgot about the bit. I am a doctor. Full PPR flex. Give Chase Brown another chance. I'd say give Love another chance, but not Chase Brown. Or flex QJ or Pearsall. I'm 0-3 and need a win. Don't we all, brother? I would go with Pearsall. Yes, I just need to convince myself. Pearsall, I would go with. Maybe is that how Yoda would say it? I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars guy. Noah says one more Lions defense or Texans defense. Both are really good. I would lean Houston there. All right. Rilavi is in the chat. Full PPR, 2 flex spots. Javonte, Sutton, Judkins, or London. All right. Let's see. Full PPR, 2 flex spots. I would go with London and Javonte. Javonte is still out there. He's running 60% of the routes. He's being targeted at a good clip. I could just see like a whole Dallas offense made of checkdowns going forward, and that's good for Ferguson and it's good for Javonte. So Briscoe says, Denny, you're the man. Oh boy. We have someone kissing up to me. I don't like that at all. I do, actually. So maybe keep doing that. Please help me out with this question. I will, but only because you said I'm the man. Pick 3 wide receivers to start. Oh boy, this list is going to be long. Debo, Jacoby, Pickens, Tyquan Thornton, Keon. Oh, it's not as long as I thought. Don't like the matchup with Debo. I mean, what can you do? By the way, my dad saw Debo play the other day. He doesn't know who Debo Samuel is, but saw him because we live in the Washington area, so he's watching the Commanders game, and he kept referring to that big tight end. And I was like, "Oh, Ertz?" He's like, "No. I know who Ertz is. The big tight end, the guy they have returning kicks for some reason." I said, "Oh, Debo Samuel? Yeah, Debo, the tight end." I was like, "No, man. He's just big boned, cut him some slack. He likes his food, maybe he's eating a lot of Dunkers like I am. There's nothing wrong with that. All right. So pick 3. I mean, Debo's one of them. I'm sorry to say, Debo, you're playing Debo. You're playing Jacoby Myers, you're playing Pickens. There you go. Do not play Keon Coleman. Totally fraudulent week 1. I told you that. Not you, Briscoe, but I told folks that both in writing and in podcast form. Keon Coleman, not good, never been good, not even close. He gets lucky in week 1. A ball gets tipped to him in the back of the end zone, and suddenly Keon Coleman breakout year. No. All right, let's see. How flex positive of Den Dog. That's right. All right, we have Devontae Smith, Quentin Johnston, or Dobbins full PPR. All right, so this is what I mean about like you gotta make Dobbins happen this week. Okay. For me, you come down to these 3 players. Dobbins has to be in there. Has to. And I guess I would go with Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston has a nice profile. I said on Thursday's Rotoworld football show that after studying the Chargers' offensive situation, I can see a defined role for Quentin Johnston. I can see a defined role for Keenan Allen. I cannot find one for Lad L. McConkey V. Maybe one will emerge, but for now he doesn't really have one. So anyway, I would go with Dobbins and Quentin Johnston for now. Let's see. Full PPR start 2 between Godwin, Ladd, Pearsall, Jennings, and McMillan. Start 2. Well, it has to be Pearsall. And I think it has to be McMillan. McMillan is seeing a lot of targets, a lot of air yards in that offense. And I think the Panthers will have to be pass heavy. They weren't pass heavy last week because, of course, they got out to a 40-point lead on the Falcons in one of the weirdest game scripts ever. I don't anticipate that this week. I didn't anticipate it last week, so take it with a grain of salt, I guess. But I would go with Pearsall and McMillan. Godwin, I'm a little shaky on because it's unclear. We're going to get reports on Saturday and Sunday, like Godwin is going to play a lot or not at all, or, maybe a little bit, rotational role. We'll have to see. But I'm trying to avoid that for right now. All right. Alicia is in the chat. Choose one in PPR. McMillan, Judkins, Worthy, or Golden. I actually would go Xavier Worthy there. I don't think it can be Judkins. McMillan's close. Can't be Golden. All right. Nicholas in the chat. I'm 0-3 on any crazy upside help. Okay. I can help you there. Full PPR with bonuses. Dart or Gino, and then flex Mooney, Marks, Shaheed, or Turpin Tolbert. Please help love the show. Thank you. All right. Gino's in a really good spot. I mean, the Bears defense is not good at all. Dart brings that dog energy. Okay. Super total dog. The vibes are going to be very good with Dart the dog and Scatterboo the dog together. Okay. And I saw a press conference today where Malik Neighbors cracked a smile. That's news. Like that's newsworthy. That should be on SportsCenter. Malik Neighbors, for the first time since he was drafted, doesn't look absolutely, completely miserable to be a Giant. I think there's a reason for that. Because Jackson Dart, who of course looks like a bad guy, he has a lot of Cobra Kai vibes. Okay, he looks a bad guy from Karate Kid, clearly, very clearly. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be fun. I would go with Gino there, and then I would go with Shaheed. I mean, if you're talking about crazy upside with bonuses, then Shaheed has to be it. Yes, Shaheed is it. I hope you get your first win, buddy. Jerry, back in the chat. Higgins, Waddle, or Jennings? I'd go with Jennings. I think I answered that. Let's see. This person says 12-person PPR league. Hunter Henry or Kraft. Too cute. Way too cute. You're playing Kraft. Too cute, you get the boot. Boswell or Lux? Lux? You mean Lutz? They're both really good plays. I'd go with Lutz. Like Boswell is fine, but the Steelers, the way their offense works, that dink and dunk short game stuff, that ain't going to fly against the Vikings. Let's get real. Let's be very real about this. The Vikings are going to eat Aaron Rodgers' lunch, okay? I say that, and then I remember that Rodgers probably has a huge chip on his shoulder because he came to Kevin O'Connell begging for the Viking starting job this offseason, and Kevin O'Connell said, thanks, but no thanks, old guy. Go, into a cave or whatever you do. And so Rodgers is probably really pissed about that. And we know how Rodgers plays when he's pissed. I mean, he pretended that like the Jets were his enemy in week 1. You can't make your lineup decisions based on that. But what I'm saying is that the Vikings will shut down the Steelers in a way that could make Boswell a not so great play. I'd go with Will Lutz the fourth. Brees Hall. Nadine says Brees Hall, JK, or Mason. Oh, really? Oh no, this is tough. Oh, I mean, you can only pick one. I go with Mason. So hard, man. That's tough. Cap for Life says thoughts on Rondé Gaston II. I want to share this story with folks who may not have heard it. I was a big Dolphins fan growing up. I don't know if you can see my Dolphins helmet up there, signed by none other than Jay Fiedler, the heir apparent, of course, to Dan Marino. I'm not a Dolphins fan anymore. Come on, let's be real. But fantasy football killed my fandom, made me soulless in that way. I used to watch Rondé Gaston II's dad. Many call him Rondé Gaston the first. Be the wide receiver 1 for Dan Marino back in like the mid 90s, late 90s. And one day against the Bills, Gaston dropped, I think, 2 fourth quarter passes that proved decisive in a Dolphins loss against the Bills. Dolphins never beat the Bills back then. I think folks remember that. Folks of a certain age will remember that. And so I was 13, 14 years old. I had an AOL account. I was logged on. I was as logged on as I am today. Not quite. Not even close, actually. And I decided to find Rondé Gaston's email address and send him an email expressing my displeasure at his fourth quarter drops. And in like the most like annoying teenage way possible, right? And I sent it to him. And like a day later, I get an email back from Rondé Gaston. And the only thing in the email was, thanks for being a fan. And he linked me to his line of clothing. And I totally deserve that. I deserve much worse than that. I want to shout out older Papa Rondé for being nice to me at 13 or 14 years old because I was a jerk. Anyway, his son's in the league now. His son had a really interesting profile, started as a receiver, converted to tight end, played almost exclusively from the slot in college. He was active for the first time this past week against the Broncos. He split routes. So Will Dissly was out for the Chargers. Gaston largely split routes with Tyler Conklin, a.k.a. Conk Daddy, per Rotopat. I don't endorse that name, okay? You won't see me going around saying Conk Daddy. But Pat does. So I guess I have to too. Anyway, So they split routes, but Conklin was just out there just running around doing nothing. Gaston was doing something. He was targeted on almost half of his routes, 7 targets, second most on the team. Excuse me, if Disley is out this week against the Giants, I think you could do a lot worse than Gadsden. The hope would be that the Chargers coaching staff, having seen this kid emerge and be like, wow, he really gets open. Like, he's really good after the catch. Justin Herbert seems to like him and trust him as an intermediate and short area pass catcher. Maybe we should play him more. Maybe his route rate goes from 40% to 70%, 60%, whatever. Then we're talking. Then that's viable for Gadsden. I would also urge you not to get too cute. And if Disley plays, then you just don't know. You really, we don't know how many routes Gadsden will end up running. So anyway, Disley's out. I think you can play him if you're desperate. All right, let's see. Big Bando says, would you all trade Chase Brown for Judy and Pollard in Dynasty? I'm not a Dynasty guy, but yes, I guess. All right. This person says, I sat Marvin Harrison for Trey Benson. I mean, that was the right move. 100 times out of 100, I would have played Benson over MHJ. That wasn't that. So you're fine. But what two do you start this week between Zay Flowers, Jameson Williams, and Scadaboo? I actually would start Scadaboo and Zay Flowers. The JMO thing might be over. Rotopat tends to disagree. I think it's completely over. The guy's running all the routes in the Lions offense finally, and he's not involved at all. 13% targets per route run. The only 2 passes he caught last week against Baltimore were on the scripted first drive. Do you know how bad that is? Do you know, that's bleak as hell. So yeah, I don't think that he's even close to Zay Flowers, and Scadaboo's nice play. So good luck. Let's see. When do we consider dropping Coleman and/or Fannin? You can drop Coleman whenever. If you have a better option over Fannin, just drop him. Yeah. Let's see. Who do I like more rest of season? Daniel D. Dimes or Dak? Easily Daniel Jones by far. All right, I'm going to try to zoom through here because we only have 4 or 5 minutes left. Cris says Guillotine League full PPR, Wan'Dale Robinson or Sterling Shepard. I'd go Wan'Dale. Mark says was offered Justin Jefferson and Henderson for J.K. Dobbins, Jacoby Myers, and Caleb Williams. You were offered Jefferson and Henderson for those guys. Let's see. Half PPR, 1 QB, keeper league, 1 QB. Dude, you have Justin Fields. Yes. Take the offer. Take it now. Hit accept. All right, Nate, back in the chat. Would I buy low on BTJ or for either Pickens or Rice in half PPR? BTJ, I think, will be fine. I would rather have him over Pickens or I guess, or Rashid Rice. I guess, yes. He's in his head a little bit. It'll be okay. This person says Trey Tucker or Alec Iomaner or Tyquan Thornton. Gosh darn it. I think I'd go with Tucker. I promise this is not just about last week. The same person says Dalton Kincaid, David Njoku, or Mark Andrews. I would go with Njoku. All right, half. Let's see. Joey says half PPR. Pick 2 out of the 4 between Pollard, Chase Brown, ETN, Pearsall. I would pick computing. Pearsall and ETN. All right. Catch-alls in the chat. Genty, Judkins, and Quentin Johnson. Pick 2. Oof. Well, it's got to be Quentin. I call him Quentin because I know him personally, and then I go Genty. I refer to what I said earlier, at the beginning of the show, if you want to rewind the tape. Dr. Dennison Jackson Powers Johnson Carter the fifth. That's my full name. Thank you. Thank you for being formal in the chat. In half PPR, also salute. In half PPR, 10-team league, who would you start at quarterback? Jordan Love or Bo Nix? I mean, look, Jordan Love is going to throw 25 passes here. Can he get there in 25 passes against Dallas? Absolutely. Bo Nix might also only throw 25 passes in super positive game script. Can he get there in 25? I don't know. I would go with Jordan G. Love the fourth. Let's see. Terry says pick one between Pearsall, Troy Franklin, and Waddle. Easily Pearsall. Mariota, Geno, or Stafford. I'd lean Geno. All right, let's see. Only a few more minutes here. With Daniels looking like he'll be out, he is out. Jaden Daniels is out. Stream Mariota or play Bo Nix. I am going to give you the green light to go ahead with Mariota in that situation. But you can't blame me. That's the thing. All right, we have a question here from Kushel. Hampton, Genty, Kamara, Dobbins, and Pearsall. Okay, you need two running backs. So you're going with Hampton and Dobbins, and you need two wide receivers and two flexes. Pearsall and Brian Thomas, and then your two flexes would be Pickens and Genty. Whew, I'm exhausted after that one. Trade Chuba for MHJ. Sure. I mean, I don't know. I guess. I mean, you're buying high on MHJ, but whatever. All right. With Golden likely playing, with Godwin. With Godwin likely playing, I need to drop someone to pull him off of IR. Would you drop Diggs, Dobbs, or Mooney? Drop Dobbs. Drop Dobbs there. Whew, a lot of questions. Am I playing? This person says, am I playing Nick Chubb over Hurt Chuba Hubbard? So okay, if Chuba's out and you have Rico Dowdle, I would play Dowdle. If not, then go with Chubb. I mentioned Chubb at the beginning of the show. If you want to hit the rewind button and check that out. Excuse me. The best thing to do professionally during a live stream is of course to burp. Steven says, is benching Dak this week and picking up someone like CJ Stroud or Tua too cute? It is. I think that is too cute. Too cute. Mostly because Stroud and Tua stink. All right. Well, I mean, you're asking who are good QB streamers. Geno Smith is out there in a lot of leagues. Matthew Stafford's out there in a lot of leagues. I really like the Rams Colts environment. You could do worse. Mariota would be fine and dandy. Things of that nature. We have another one. Lord Denathan Bartholomew Harris III. My name again. Thank you. The people cry out for kicker advice. Who is my top streamers? Who are my top streamers as far as kickers go? Shoot. I gotta just look that up real quick. You could do worse than Carlson for the Raiders. You could give a shot to McManus of the Packers. And is that it? That might be it. If Fairbairn's out there, you might want to get crazy. Get a little Kaimi Fairbairn in your life. All right, folks. I hope that helps. Good luck in week 4. Thank you for joining the stream. Make sure to join me next week at 1:00 Eastern time, the only legitimate time zone where you can give me more of your Qs and I will give you more of your As. In the meantime, good luck to you and only you in week 4.